So David is still having issues, and Jonathan is still helping him. David flees from Saul to Jonathan, and Jonathan cannot imagine that his father really wants to do David harm, but will help him. 1, figure it out, and 2, protect him in any case. Great. One thing we note, if we read around the story, click on the link to do that, is that neither man is referring to God, but trying to figure it out all on their own. David will get closer to God once he ascends the throne, but more later. At this point, David and Jonathan are, 1, acting like true brothers to each other, though not related by blood, and 2, acting on their own, independent of God, though interdependent on each other. This separation of God from our daily lives, or separation of God, the God of the Old Testament, from the God of the New, is nothing new and nothing good. It was heresy when Marcion was spreading it around in the 2nd century of Rome, one of the Gnostic heresies of the early church, and it is heresy today. Yes, Virginia, there is good and bad, right and wrong. Morality is not always relative, and religion is not here to make you feel good about your bad decisions, despite what you infer from most churchmen these days. St. Pius, the first pope by that name, and the 9th successor of St. Peter, whom we commemorate today, served as Bishop of Rome in those early days when to be Christian was tough. A new emperor usually brought persecution, and enemies of the faith were constantly vying for position from without and within the church. The Marcion heresy, one of the dualistic heresies, could not reconcile the writings of the Old and New Testaments, and so deduced that there were 2 gods, one wrathful God of the Old and one merciful one of the New. Pope St. Pius I stamped this out as best he could in the 150s, but it is still alive and well today. How many times have you heard someone say in passing, "I'm more of a New Testament God type than an Old"? And how many people have you encountered who think that seeking an eye for an eye is a good thing? That the quality of mercy should not only be strained, but snapped? I hope she gets hers. He'll get what's coming to him. Or, that's okay. To each his own. Who am I to judge? Jesus wouldn't judge him. Why should I? Okay. If you have ever said anything like that, you are a dualist, a full-fledged Marcion. To wish wrath down upon someone is denying the saving acts of the cross and the salvation offered to all in Jesus Christ. To refuse to think that God disapproves of anything is to ignore the God of creation, who set the world in order and declared it good. And when we see his creation out of order, his creatures creating disorder, to grab a phrase like, "Judge not, lest ye be judged," and use it out of context to excuse you from making judgments for yourself over what is right and wrong, is to aid and abet the disorder and become an accessory after the fact. So what can I do? Well, the prophet Micah, again returned to the wall of the Temple Emmanuel Annex, gives us a pre-taste for the Christian integration, not dualistic separation, of the Old and New Testaments when he enjoins us, do justice, love mercy, walk humbly with thy God. We are not called to be judgmental. We are called to judge justly. We are not called to be vengeful. We are called to be merciful. We are not called to be proud of how virtuous we are, and that we are not like that sinner. We are called to acknowledge our faults and walk humbly with our God. And as Christians, walking with God is walking with Christ, and walking with Christ is walking with the individual members of his body, with you, with me, with all with whom we come into contact today. So be like Pius, not pietistic. Be like Jonathan. Think the best and be wary of the worst. Be like Christ. Give of yourself for those you love. Give your love to all those you encounter, even sinners, even me, even you.